My dream is that we fundamentally change the way we view success in companies. Trying to drive change in large corporates is so hard because there's so many fixed things that you have to try to change. The systems that we run our companies by were actually created more than 100 years ago. They were created for the third industrial age, but we're entering the fifth industrial age of AI. This environment around us has changed and it's creating new problems that the old ways are not helping us address. Our environment tells us leaders are the heroes. They should have all the answers. They should know what to do all the time. And it's very hard for a leader to say, actually, I need some help. I work a lot with leaders who really are overwhelmed already. It doesn't have to be that way, but it's most common at the moment.
Leah, welcome to Decisions That Count.
Hi, thanks for having me on the show. It's great to be here.
Thanks for being here. Very excited today. We are going to be talking about leadership, systems and decision fatigue. Before we get stuck in, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your work and the book that you're writing?
So I'm Leah Stockley. I am many things. Over my career, I spent 20 years in technology, working on large-scale change programs for huge global banks and consultancies and things like that. So I have the kind of hardcore corporate trenches experience. And then I moved into, or I saw that the way that we were working was just letting us down. And I got fascinated by that. So I moved into ways of working, like agile, lean, design thinking, transformation. How do we drive change across huge global organizations? And then I discovered organisational psychology and went, that's what I do. I didn't realize. So I did my master's in that a few years ago, specializing in leadership change. And here I am. About 2 years ago, I left the corporate life, realizing I had messages to give and to help leaders kind of get out of this mess that they seem to be stuck in. And so that's what I do now. I started my company, Let's Flow. I have created an online community and academy for leaders to get the skills that they need in a safe environment, which doesn't always happen in their companies. And I'm also writing a book at the moment, which will be published. I've just pushed the deadline back to Q3 this year, which will be entitled Momentum, Small Steps Lead to Big Impact.
Amazing.
Nice.
Okay, I'm really excited about the conversation today, partly just from my own experience of working in corporate and now being in startup world and learnings that we can take for both as well. So, how we can change corporates, but also if we're building a company from scratch and we want to scale very quickly, how can we've got a blank slate?
That was going to be my very first question. Yeah.
Oh, was it?
Sure. Well, I guess my comment is so I love all this stuff, but I find there's a gap for startups in the sense that the big corporates and the leaderships, but in the startup world, you have an opportunity to start from nothing to build it. So have you worked with start or founders, or is that okay.
Yeah, and that's my sweet spot. That's my favorite place to be. Exactly.
Because there is no history.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So trying to drive change in large corporates is so hard because there's so many fixed things that you have to try to change. That's not true for startups. So you start with a blank slate. Everything I've created in the ACT system, I've applied to my business, which I started 2 years ago. And I've had a fascinating client in the last year that's got some mature businesses, but also some startups. And we've applied the same system in different ways. So it works equally. Okay. But it's a fantastic opportunity. Don't make the mistakes that the corporates have made and build it right from the start.
Well, it's always interesting to me because you pitch to investors and they have all these questions about your finances and all this stuff, but no one will ask you about your leadership strategy, your leadership ideas, which is probably the most important question to be asking. But has an investor ever asked us anything about leadership?
No.
Which is wild. Because if I were ever to invest in a company, you'd want to know how are you going to lead this company? Not the stupid hockey stick for the, how much money you're going to make.
But maybe that's just the stage that we're at. Maybe when we get to Series A and Series B, that's where those questions come in.
I think it might depend on your investor.
Yeah.
But I think what your experience is what I hear. My dream is that we fundamentally change the way we view success in companies because it's so short-term, financial. What's my return in the next 6 months? Some longer term, but you're right. The great strategy fails in execution. every time.
So let's talk about your system. So you mentioned your system, ACT.
Yes.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay. So ACT stands for Aspire, Collaborate, Thrive. I'm loving it. I didn't set out to create it, but it's really evolved in the last 2 years. I love it because it's really simple. So it started as a daily reminder for leaders who want to lead with intent. You know, like a little poster, have it somewhere you can see and remind yourself every day that you want to aspire. So that means I will lead with clear vision and priorities. Set that clarity for people. Collaborate is I create an environment where people can work together with ease and flow. And then thrive is really, how do I know what good looks like? How do I measure that? Am I measuring only in terms of financials, or can I see human impact and outcomes and different kinds of outcomes that show me that I'm on the right track? And they could be small daily as well as, 5 30-year visions. So the way that we measure things actually is causing a lot of damage to companies right now. It could be a daily reminder. I don't know what to do next. ACT. Okay, what am I trying to achieve? Who can I work with to get me there? What's the next small step I can take to thrive and to get some progress? And it's also a system because it can be applied at the organizational level. So I have 10 questions that I ask a leadership team of an organization. And healthy organizations, the leaders can answer all of those questions. So they're things like, why do we exist? Who do we serve? How do we see and spot and respond to opportunities or risks? And there's like 10 questions like that. Behind that sits a load of techniques, approaches, tools that I've curated. So where we see that they can't answer that question clearly, that tells us there's a problem somewhere in the system. We think it's here, so let's go do some work in that space. The same system can be applied at any scale, really. So yeah, that's how it's evolved, and I'm loving putting it into practice with leaders and on my own business as well.
Are leaders nowadays, like, from your career, is there more attention given to this now? Like,
No.
No? Okay. Still not enough. Yeah.
Still not enough. I think, we're very much a product of our environment. And our environment tells us leaders are the heroes. They should have all the answers. They should know what to do all the time. And so it's very hard for a leader to say, actually, I need some help. I don't know this. And the way that we work, the systems that we run our companies by, were actually created more than 100 years ago, typically. Certainly for the bigger established companies and anyone who's worked in corporate. They were created for the third industrial age, which was steam. Right? Factories, ways of doing things like that, for an uneducated workforce where the managers had all the answers. But we're just entering the fifth industrial age of AI. We've gone through digital, some are going through digital. We have AI as well. And those old systems are letting us down. We talked earlier about decision fatigue. This environment around us has changed, and it's creating new problems that the old ways are not helping us address. So when I talk with leaders, I say, look, you're the expert on what you do. I'm not claiming to be that, but I'm an expert on how you get that done and how we design a system for your company to run.
What would be like the most common stumbling blocks for leaders? Or is it pretty unique to each case?
There are definitely some common patterns that I'm seeing. And I work a lot with leaders who really are overwhelmed already. Doesn't have to be that way, but it's most common at the moment. And what's getting in their way, I think, is a few things. First of all, they're not really clear, especially if you think about corporate. They're not able to tie the work they and their teams do every day up to something that the business values, not very clearly. Right? So it's really hard to say, yeah, I do this and it creates this impact. Maybe if you're a sales team, but if you're not, it gets much harder. When you can't do that, you can't decide what to say no to. Right? How do I prioritize if I'm not really clear what the most important thing is? When you get too much work, it gets chaotic, we get overwhelmed. And we then start clinging to the things that feel controllable. So that's like your plan or your job description or your routines the way that you do things because they're comfortable. So you retreat to those. But when you do that, you lose sight of the value. that you're supposed to be creating. You're just focusing on something small. That basically creates these toxic cultures that we experience, right? Of blame, fear, because you aren't delivering the value you think you should be. You don't know how to measure or prove that. And so everyone starts stabbing each other in the back, trying to prove that they're better or covering their back.
Like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, very, very, very familiar.
Yeah. So we end up like too much work. We can't work with other people because we're too busy trying to protect ourselves.
Huh.
And then things get slower and we don't get the results. And then it just spirals down. It's just keeps happening, keeps getting worse.
And I guess in big corporate, it's not like it'll kill the organization. It's just becomes a terrible place to work.
Yeah, it becomes a terrible place to work.
Yeah.
The shareholders put the thumb screws on even tighter because the results aren't good enough. Everyone panics, and it just gets worse.
Right.
I'm just reading Heineken have just had a similar issue. Their CEO's leaving. It keeps happening. It's that pattern that keeps repeating.
I worked for the House of Mouse, and you can Google this. This hasn't come from me, but there's lots of Reddit threads about it being the unhappiest place on earth to work.
Really?
Yeah, whether that's parks or the entertainment side. The problem that we would always have would be there were musical chairs constantly at the top.
Yes.
Constantly at the top. So every 6 to 12 months, there would be new leadership with new messaging, different agenda. By the time it kind of trickled down to you tried to start executing against it, they'd be playing musical chairs again at the top.
Yeah.
And it was and then, they were always on this kind of 2 or 3 year cycle of redundancies. So then they would grow, cut. So people who'd been there for kind of 10, 15 years knew this cycle like very, very well. And that cycle also kind of produced a lot of people playing politics. People learned how to play the game. So there was a lot of politics. There was a lot of people who would be doing things behind your back that you wouldn't necessarily know about. So it just kind of created this very toxic work environment. I say all of these things very negatively, and if any of my ex-colleagues are watching, like I did have a wonderful time, and I did learn a lot, and it was just a really amazing few years. But in the end, it was like I couldn't sustain that level of like the demand, the workload, the expectations, the lack of kind of leadership and direction, the responsibility I felt for my team as a leader. It was a lot, and it felt completely and utterly powerless, and felt completely like everything that I did, that all I wanted was to like do a great job and like get this incredible product into the hands of people, because I knew the product brought so much joy to people. And I just didn't understand why it always had to be so difficult, so complicated, so many layers. And it was just soul destroying in the end.
I feel that. I've had the same experience too. Imagine if all that energy went into just getting great products.
Yeah.
Building it. Yeah. Is AI making this worse or better? Is it exacerbating this condition? Is it neutral?
I think it's, in some respects, it's neutral. It's another wave, it's another thing. But it depends how people receive it. Obviously, some people see it as an opportunity. Some people are going to see it as a cause of fear and another threat, which definitely exacerbates the negative side of the behaviors and stuff. So as I've been looking into it and using it, I think that used in its best way, it gives everybody an assistant.
Yeah.
If it can be used that way, everyone can be more productive, then it could be a good thing. Obviously used with, critical thinking and all of that. But used unthinkingly and applied by leaders to slash budgets and slash jobs before anything's been properly designed to be used properly, that's obviously not going to help.
Yeah. Many leaders, and I definitely felt this myself, feel like they should know how to fix what's broken at work. And often they feel completely stuck. From your perspective, like what's actually getting in the way?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on it, you touched on it too. The biggest challenge is lack of clarity, right? If you're clear what you need to do next, you just get on with it. If, not accountable, able to, you've got the authority to be able to make those decisions and take those actions. When those two things are not really in place, lack of clarity, lack of authority, yet you're responsible, that obviously gets in the way. And then that triggers the personal things that start getting in the way. And maybe we'll talk later about inertia. There's inertia in the organisation, but there's personal inertia as well. And so if the conditions are not right, you feel shame, you feel blocked, you feel not capable. There's these needs that we have, that are not being met. And if you experience that every single day, it just reduces your capacity to be effective at work.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed when we hire folks from corporate into a startup world, they don't like the uncertainty of it compared to their old job, but then they love the fact that they can do something about it. I don't know if you felt this, but it's like, whoa, there's no clear answers. We need to find a way, but you're saying that I have the authority to find the way. Then there's like excitement to do it. So it's that clarity, direction. And I don't know if you felt that with a startup, but.
Yeah, that's the best bit about working at a startup is, just being able to kind of make those decisions and run with it and, learn quickly, pivot quickly, fail fast, but move forward. And there's an energy to that. Like, it makes me not ever want to go back to corporate. Like, now I've kind of had that taste of freedom.
Virus.
Yeah, I know.
The bug.
No. So it's like, don't think I'll ever go back.
There's like the psychological needs at work that we have, which is you feel connected to something bigger than you that matters and supported by the people around you. So that kind of relatedness, connectedness is really key, which is you get in a startup, right? You join because you passionately believe in the goal, the thing that you're going after. The autonomy is another one that you just described. So yeah, I can get on with this. I know roughly what I need to do. I might not know how to do it, but I can get on with it. And then capability, or the ability, even if I don't have the answer right now, I've got the ability to go figure this out. And if you have those three psychological needs met at work, you can be unstoppable.
You're good to go.
Yeah.
Again, this is what startup founders need to be taught, right? Like, this should be number one thing that investors should be teaching their founders, because you need the best people for your startups, right? Like, it's driven by those very few people, and to attract those best people, it's going to be those three things, right? For sure. So that's how you probably keep. Maybe I'm wrong, but I assume that's also how you keep your talent. That's what's going to make people stay.
Yeah, absolutely. Those companies that try and scale up and then move towards that old corporate model of structure and hierarchy and control, and of course you need boundaries and clarity and alignment, but you don't need to do that in those old ways, because they've been deliberately designed to break down those things, because they were designed with a view that the manager's got all the answers and the unthinking employee comes in and follows orders. But that's, we're in a knowledge economy. Like, that's just not real.
Yeah, but this is also like what we're thinking, and this is one of the most exciting things for me. So I head up marketing within the company, and I'm always thinking about, okay, how do we build a marketing team of the future? I don't want to hire any traditional roles at all, because I believe they're redundant now. And we have that AI component. So it's okay, how are we building AI agents to tackle certain, not positions, but certain tasks? And then how are we, I believe it's our job is like, how many signals that we can bring into the business can we act on? So it's really kind of like looking at the data coming in, executing, and then looking at that data that's coming back and acting. And therefore, what are the roles that are needed to do that? We've got people all over the world that we are working with. We've got the email team sitting in the Whit Sundays. We've got a video editor in Egypt. We've been working with a team in Morocco. We've got someone in Venezuela. We've got people in all over the US. And it's okay, how can we find the best people to do these roles? But how are these roles done differently?
Yeah.
Our SEO guy doesn't own a computer screen. So he sits, when we do our calls, if ever we ask him to put the camera on, the camera is in the corner of his room. He's sitting there with I don't even know if it's Google Lens or whatever. He's got his VR headset on, and kind of things on his fingers, and that's it. He's not sitting in front of a computer.
tricky, yeah.
It's weird, yeah. He's facing like a blank wall, but what he's seeing is, he says, I'm sitting on the top of a mountain in Hawaii. I've got all of the surround sound of sitting on I can hear the water in the background. I can hear the birds singing. I'm sitting on this mountain. I've got kind of 3 screens in front of my face, and I'm looking at all of these different data points and everything else. A traditional setup wouldn't allow that to happen. Wouldn't allow us to be able to work with this person who is wildly intelligent, wildly ahead in terms of his use of technology and understanding of the platforms and everything else. To help us kind of execute.
I love that. And that's your great leadership, right? That you can be okay to trust in the expertise of the person that you hire without necessarily having to understand everything that they do or how they work, but trusting this is what I need from you, and trusting them to get on with it and deliver it however works for them.
Yeah.
And as long as you're seeing the results and ideally connecting with that person, then yeah.
The one challenge that I foresee for us in the coming years is, as we grow, and right now everyone is contracted. There are 3 permanent employees in the business, and that's myself as CMO, Shawn as kind of founder, and then we've got a CEO. Everyone else is kind of, we're hiring on a contract basis. But as we do hire permanent employees, and if we do continue to hire people who are all over the world, how do we build culture? How do we make sure that there's a connection
across cultures? Because relating from Morocco to Philippines to, right?
Yeah,
and what's hard.
And I don't believe in big team meetings. I don't think we all need to sit through. We've all sat through too many meetings that we didn't need to be in. So all of these people that I've mentioned have never been in a room together, have never been on a call together, because they don't need to be. At this stage. And so I'm very we don't waste anybody's time. We don't do presentations. We don't do documents. Everything's done in Notion and Slack. That's kind of where our communication happens. We only have a call if we absolutely need to. Yeah. I'm very protective of everybody's time. Again, trying to think about shaking off any of those corporate behaviors that slow us down. We're not doing it. But culture is really important, and it's that connection, how we're building those relationships. Not only do they just believe in the product and the problem that we're trying to solve, which is strong, but how do they believe in us as leaders? How do we care about them and them care about us?
And as you said, that needs a human connection to connect. Who is that person there? What's going on for them? Because sometimes they'll have bad days or drops, because that's life. When you've built trust and a connection with them, you weather all that together. But that's the biggest challenge. I think the simplest answer I would offer for that is very intentionally and very openly and transparently. Right? You first have to get clear. Maybe it's the founding team. What is this culture? What do we want it to be? And then it's constant communication of that, not with the big town halls and the posters on the wall that don't mean anything, but the day-to-day behavior and interaction, right? That as long as they're matching each other, that culture will permeate, but you do have to talk about it. It does have to be. And if you've read the culture code, a book like that, just the cultures that really, really work are talked about every day, referenced in every call and meeting, not in a fake way, but just because that is just how people work. And so those little phrases, those little things, you can kind of gently prompt each other if someone's not behaving in that way that aligns with your culture. Or
takes work.
It takes work. It needs effort and work, otherwise it will get away from you.
I think because so many of our partners now are individual contributors or kind of micro teams or agencies that are kind of all working quite independently. I don't think we've had the need to kind of, align them to our culture. Maybe they have their own, if it's a team of 3, or a team of, it's just really something to think about.
Even there, a team of 3 will have their own culture, and that's important too.
Yeah.
Still, be cautious of, I've worked with consultancy recently as well, where many of us are independent. Yet when we're working on something, we really still missed not having that guidance from the people above, the people that we were serving, through them on to a client. So I think people need, maybe slightly less so, but people still need that sense of I'm connected into something that is bigger than I am and bigger than this piece of work.
Is it a challenge for because the generations must be so different? Because I think of my dad, who was one company his entire life, loyalty to the company and loyalty back.
Yes.
There's a two-way street, right? To now, and we've had one on the podcast. I forget how old she was. And she was the wise beyond her years.
Oh, Gen Z, Holly Smith.
Yeah.
Wild.
But their priorities are so different.
Yeah.
There's no loyalty unless it's proven or and they're what they want from life is so different. Their expectations in life, probably the culture is different. As a leader, is it possible to bring all of that together from a fresh grad to a senior leadership?
Yeah, it is. Again, not without some effort and attention on it. But yeah, I think there's something called LMX in the academia, leader member exchange. And there's always a unique relationship between every leader and the person working for them.
Okay.
And you have expectations of what it means to be a leader. They have expectations of what it means to be a leader of you. And if those go, look, sometimes they just align perfectly and it's all good. But when they don't, it's really important to have a good conversation. Right? What are your expectations? And actually just sit and how do we work together? What are some basic rules? This is me. This is how I like to work. How about you? And when I do this with teams, there's a bit of structure.
That's great to hear. So this is what you do. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Working agreement is something that I almost always start with if there isn't one. Right. What do we need? How do we want to be working together? What do we need to do that? What are we going to do when things go wrong? Because they will. Let's agree it now. And then we've always got that anchor to come back to if we need it. And if things aren't looking good, we can go, hey, let's come back to this. We agreed this at a time where there weren't high emotions. Let's come back to this now and have a look. You'll come to something that even if everyone's not 100% aligned, people were part of agreeing and aligning to it.
Yeah.
And so you'll kind of come to something that works, whatever the culture generation.
So a lot of the work that I do within kind of marketing is a lot of it is all online, it's digital. So obviously I've got everything from sales, but also the content. So, we're putting out hundreds of pieces of content every month and I'm getting live data on, is that resonating? Is that responding? What decisions do I need to make to change, to react to that? It's very live. Okay, that piece of content didn't work. It only got 300 views. Okay, but we believe that messaging's right. How can we change the hook? How can we tweak it? What do we need to go back and do differently?
Act in action. That's it's perfect. And then how do you tie that up? I know you're 3 people, but as you scale, how do you tie that and make sure that your success is definitely linking to something that the organization agrees is successful and what they're looking for from you? So if you've got that, I call the golden thread, that just creates that link back and that kind of feedback loop.
Because my side of the business is sales and marketing, right? It's all the marketing, it's all D2C, and that very literally drive sales. So, but I think we've got operations, manufacturing, distribution, product, the science, everything else that fits behind it is so maybe it's kind of we need to work on that thread that crosses that side, and is it the same or is there something that just sits above what I'm trying to do?
One advantage to a startup or like ours is the goals tend to be in the near future. So for us, it's Series A.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't get to that goal, then, well, there's no business to talk about, right? So we do have an advantage of there's a lot of components to it. You're right. And all of those things need to come together to hit it. But
can I ask, how do you know? So I love, you said your goal is help people make better decisions. How are you going to know?
Yeah, that probably some of it falls on me. So one of the big, our company at its core, when we start, there's 2 sides to us. There's a science side So anything in health is, and it's a core value for all three of us, which when we were doing our initial talk and discussions and meeting each other, is high quality science, because that's the proof point that we're hitting that target of making better, just helping people make better decisions. So we agreed the only way to measure that is through clinical work, through double-blind, placebo-controlled crossover clinical trials. Very clear, quantitative. But then the other side is also the soul. So we have the science, and then we have the soul. And I mean, that's kind of the two chairs right here, right? Where we can show people the impact of better decision making. Because I can tell you that I can make, I'm sure we'll talk about decision fatigue at some point, but I can say this product will prevent decision fatigue for 4 hours, right? I'll give you a percentage change of how much better your decision quality is. But Michelle will talk to you, well, what does it actually mean for your life?
Yeah.
Because the problem with so many things in healthcare is like, oh, your focus is improved by 7%. What does that even mean? Like, what does that mean to me as a person, right? And that's the soul side of because the reality is when it comes to decisions, it's a great topic, because ask anybody, would you want to be making better decisions in your life? Everybody says yes, right?
No brainer. Yeah.
So it's something very personal, but
it's very hard to measure that. And, and I think when we were asking customers, the first, couple of hundred customers, we sent them an email and said, look, we're a new company. We'd just really like to know why you bought us. We're new to market. We don't have a lot of social proof yet. We've got our clinical study, but and some of them just recognize the problem. And just when I come home from work, I didn't have anything left for my family. I couldn't think straight. I, was suffering from a fatigue that went beyond tiredness. And I recognize that this is decision fatigue, and I'm really hoping that it was that kind of emotional connect of, I want to be more present with my family when I get home from work.
I love that, because you talk about the science and when I did my dissertation, I did qualitative. I was like, let me go and deeply understand the experience of some people, because there's insights there that then we can take back and measure and get even more scientific in a quantitative way on. But we need both. We need to be looking at both as signs of success. I think that's really key. Yeah. My big goal is I want to improve the lives of 1 million people through ACT because their work experience is better every day. We're removing avoidable stress for them. I don't fully know how I'm going to measure that yet either, but that's my big kind of lofty goal. But when I look at, there's some stats out there that I think could be relevant for you too, maybe, certainly. It's a work context, but there's like 79% of people experience work stress daily, globally. That's a statistic. That was in 2024. I bet it's probably higher now.
It's crazy.
3/4 of them take that stress home with them, and it impacts their personal life. So that's a human toll. You can imagine all the things that are going wrong in their lives because of that. And from a company perspective, there's a 41% drop in productivity from work anxiety, and that's impacting the global economy by $1 trillion. There's a $1 trillion loss to the global economy through workplace stress in 2024. Probably
1 year
bigger last year. Wait for the data to come out. It's huge. This is the impact, and that's my hope with ACT, that we see changes in those kind of stats and things improving, because it's just avoidable stress at work, right? All the things that you were describing at the beginning. Yeah, there's some good, but there's a lot more bad stories I hear at the moment in corporate life. And people shouldn't be experiencing that every day, just trying to go in and do a good job and earn money and live their life. And it doesn't have to be that way either. There are some really simple techniques that leaders can employ, I think leaders don't cause the problem, actually, but they have to be part of the solution and take action on it. And there's some really simple techniques that we can teach them that I've been learning over the years, and it's easy to forget when you know them how many people don't know them, how many leaders have never been taught. How do you prioritize effectively? How do you build a team and connect with your team? How do you work with another team and get on with your peers? And how do you describe your mission to stakeholders? All these skills that our leaders need, they don't actually get taught.
I think one of the biggest things that I've learned since meeting Shawn, almost 2 years ago, it's understanding what's going on physiologically in the brain as well. And I think we're just so wired to just, and so conditioned, not even wired, like conditioned to just push through, keep going, your work day doesn't finish until 5, 6, 7, and it's keep going, work harder. And ultimately there's a limit to how much the brain can handle. And you quoted those stats about stress. Is if we actually had the stats about decision fatigue and what's happening, that limitation that you've got, I bet it's similar. I bet 70% of the workforce are suffering from decision fatigue on a daily basis, and as a result, they're coming home more emotional, more drained, have no capacity to even hold a meaningful conversation when they get home. And I reckon the impact of that is trillions of dollars to businesses every year, because what they're actually making their employees do is push past their capacity, but what their brain can handle, and therefore they're getting subpar outputs for much of the day.
There's data that shows that now, how much it's costing companies. And it's this weird macho thing that like, oh, I worked 12 hours today, or like, where it's just like, as a leader, you should be like, oh, that means that for, maybe 6 of those hours, you were making poor decisions. And it's not and that's what we always say on this podcast. I try to get the point across, and Michelle used the word correctly. It's physiological. It's not a personal failing.
Yeah.
It's not that, oh, you're less because your decision quality declined. It's just a physical limitation of the brain. That's what decision fatigue is. So as a leader, it's bizarre to keep your people working for so long. Maybe that's a question to you, is this whole field of decision fatigue is new. Off air, I was mentioning to you, this is a white space in neuroscience. There's no one, we never had to look into this condition because it wasn't a condition a couple decades ago, right? In leadership, are people thinking about limitations of the human brain yet? Is this even in any discussion points?
Yes, of course, I'm sure out there certain are, but from the clients and the people I speak to, no, not at all. We are conditioned to just keep going. And I spoke with a CFO a few months ago, and he's like, oh, these people who are just complaining and burning out, and they're just lazy, they're just not putting any effort. I've done this my whole career, and they can't see how the environment around us has changed. How technology is probably one of the biggest factors, I think, in we're always on. We don't get to, switch off. When I started my career, I didn't lug my big desktop computer home and carry on working. It wasn't possible. Now it's impossible to switch off. You have to be very intentional and have the safety and support of your leader to be able to switch off. So yeah, and then the pressure put by shareholders for those immediate short-term, the next quarter's got to be better. The pressure coming down is just ridiculous, and it's causing people to make very short-term decisions that actually damage the company and damage the people. This decision fatigue is so important for people to understand.
Yeah.
And maybe easier to grasp than some of the, technology is doing all this to, but it's really quite visceral, I think, for people maybe as well. Like, this decision is harder than it feels like it should be. Why? What's behind that? Oh, I just made too many decisions today.
And just knowing it for your team as well is, I think, and making sure that with AI speeding up the rate of decisions that we're making, giving them time to really think things through, and just giving them the space. And
that old saying, right? You can't make a baby in 1 month with 9 mothers. Like, you just, there are things that take time for us to process.
I've never heard that.
I am loving that saying. I'm definitely going to use that.
Like humans have to take time to take things in and process. Change takes time. And you can't speed that up. Where we can do a load of work with AI, but actually the human's still got to.
That's the limiting factor now. And I think people don't recognize that it's actually the one choke point in productivity is the human brain, right? We can make decisions all day. It's just the quality of those decisions are declining rapidly.
The scary thing is, though, is leaders are accountable.
Yes.
So, and especially the further up you go and you become directors, you become legally responsible. And the decisions that you're making under, like, I don't know, duress is the right word, but your brain is in a state where it shouldn't be making decisions, yet you continue to make decisions, you are liable.
But to your point as well, and that's why it's so key to have the system in place and your organization running in a healthy way, so that the right decisions that can be made at a lower level are made there.
Yeah.
Not at the point, literally working in a bank of 90,000 people where the CEO has to sign off flights for everybody because there's a travel ban.
Yeah.
That's not what your CEO of a global bank should be looking at. That's gone mad. Bureaucracy gone mad if that's where the decision power of the CEO is focused.
Yeah.
But that is the reality that is happening.
And the CEO, the level of decisions that the CEO of a global bank is making, he or she should be making one a day, because of the impact of those decisions.
Interesting.
Like it's wild that they are then having to sign things.
So that's a question I had for you, actually. So I know when I go work with leaders and teams, I put things like OKRs in place, arguments for how good they are, but they're a great place to start of getting some kind of system and clarity in place for people. And I like it because I think you make a big decision every quarter. Hopefully you've got your grand vision and then you take a chunk of that, you make a decision about it once a quarter and give everyone clarity, like, yeah, okay, this is what we're focusing on for the next 90 days. And then daily you're making smaller slice decisions of, okay, is this the next best thing I can be doing to work to that? And it just puts that system and that rhythm in place as well for people to guide and make it easier for people to make decisions, I believed. And then I heard about decision fatigue and I'm like, oh, is a daily check-in a bad thing? Because you're forcing people to make decisions at the beginning of the day. Is that the right thing to do? So my question, we touched on it offline, does the weight of the decision impact decision fatigue? If it's a smaller slice decision, does that mean you can make more of them? Or is a decision and it has the same toll?
Yeah, great question. And from the research that's out there and our own research, two things affect decision fatigue. So the number of decisions, just the sheer quantity. Okay. So if you wake up in the morning, open your phone and scroll TikTok, every time you swipe's a decision, right? Like you're burning through your decisions right in the morning. And they're not obviously not important decisions, but it's just a sheer number of decisions you're making. And the second thing is the emotional connection to the decision. So I make the argument repeatedly that like moms probably have terrible decision fatigue all the time because it seems like small decisions, but they're very emotionally engaging, right? It's like, oh, well, what are the kids going to eat for dinner? It seems like a simple thing, but like, no, there's actually a lot of emotions that are going into that decision. Health, like everything that you can imagine, right? So in a workplace, if it's a few decisions, but they're very impactful, that carry a lot of emotional weight, decision fatigue can happen quick. For like military personnel, they think that it can happen within 45 minutes because obviously you're in a very stressful environment and every decision is very emotional. So yeah, two things, number of decisions and the context and how emotionally engaged you are in those decisions will affect how fast decision fatigue can happen. And I think a fallacy that's even I was brought up with is, and I used to do, would be, oh, I'm going to get all those mundane tasks done in the morning. So the afternoon I'm clear to do important work, right? I'm going to finish all those emails I didn't want to do so I can focus on the important things. That's the worst thing I could have done because by the time I'm on to the important things, my brain is fried. My decision capacities are probably much lower.
Yeah.
And so Michelle brought this idea, and I do it now daily, is instead of a to-do list, you actually have a decision list. So you list out what are the most important decisions I need to make today. And you always do those in the morning. Recognizing that those mundane decisions will drain you, and so you leave those for later.
Yeah. And maybe you don't need so much brain power for those anyway.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Or the consequences of decision fatigue are of a lower magnitude if it's a smaller decision. Versus those really important ones, do those things right in the morning.
I like that. Can I steal it?
I stole it.
I would give credit.
Dishes, I know.
Michelle Burnko.
Yeah, it's one of those, but now it's how do we reduce the decision load?
It reminds me of one other thing too that our research showed, and it has been shown as well from other folks, is a drop in communication between teammates. So in our trials, really interesting, we work within like sports, so it's top tier esports athletes, and as they started to suffer from decision fatigue, communication between team members dropped drastically. So it seems that the cognitive load of communication is actually quite heavy for your prefrontal cortex. So it actually uses a lot of that cognitive capacities. So even team activities should probably be in the morning versus the afternoon. So that was another, it reminded me that another piece of research that we found with decision fatigue is interpersonal communication. It seems to be a major factor.
Well done. As a natural introvert, I can understand that. But yeah, there's some really good insights I'm totally bringing into the work that I do.
I'll show all the research to you because it is brand new. This is like all in the last few years. So it's something that certainly organizations haven't caught on to yet. But even the major scientific community, it's still just starting. So
cool. What happens if you know what decision needs to be made, but you're not able to make it? You're not empowered to make it?
Yeah, it's probably not related as much to decision fatigue as organizational psychology. That's totally your field. Yeah, that empowerment. Yeah. Whereas decision fatigue is just a physical limit. It's like when your legs just can't walk anymore. Your brain just can't decide anymore.
Okay. So yeah, I think we're spinning into burnout conversation.
Definitely. Leah, thank you so much. This has been a fascinating conversation. I don't feel like we didn't ask half the questions, so man, we might have to feel bad at some point.
Probably my fault.
Yeah, derailing it from the beginning. But really, thank you so much for all of your insight. And I feel like we've got some advice as well.
Yeah, 3 sessions.
To being where we're at. Yeah, it's amazing. For everyone still listening, watching, we're going to link to all of Leah's profiles below. Please check them out. Ask us any questions. We'll make sure that you
When is the book?
Q3.
Q3.
Launch. Yeah.
Okay, amazing.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. And to everyone still listening, make every decision count. We'll see you next week. Thanks.